Hi everyone, it's Nina the Advocate. I did post today on our community page, if you saw that. I posted where Bryan Kohberger was showing up today for his extradition hearing in Pennsylvania. And just had mentioned also that I would be posting something else today, perhaps even a letter, an open letter regarding the Idaho 4. And I'll be honest with you, I have just not had the release for this letter yet. I have been writing and rewriting and writing and rewriting this letter since the week after the crime occurred. And Xana, Ethan, Maddie, and Kaylee, since their lives were taken so tragically and heinously. And whenever there was an arrest, whenever Bryan was arrested, I mean, there's such bittersweetness to that because we want an arrest. We want to see justice. But just the fact that we have to want that, just the fact that this occurred is just, it's just heartbreaking. And so I kind of was, shifting the letter to more like to focus toward him. And then I just was like, I just don't want to focus all this energy on him, writing to him. So I put it on the back burner. I may come back to it. I may take a totally different route with it, but we're going to let it just kind of simmer for a while. But I did want to come on and discuss the case some, because let me tell you, this case, it is a wild ride. Bryan Kohberger was just arrested and apprehended not even a week ago. And let me tell you, I mean, the books that could be written. And I just wanted to kind of go over just some of the perspectives we're getting from people who knew him, know him, have had any kind of, altercation or any kind of just experiences with Bryan, to kind of get to know who this person is that has been charged with the allegedly, let me say that again, allegedly, he is innocent until proven guilty. Let me just put that out there right now. All of this that I'm talking about today is totally my opinion. It is not for fact. I don't know him. I've not known him. I don't know the individuals that have known him. I'm just responding and analyzing the perspectives and the information that we're being given. Okay, of course, there's going to be more as things are released. Once that affidavit gets released and we're able to see the probable cause warrant, things like that, it's going to give us many, many more answers. But until then, I just kind of want to go over a few things about him that I'm picking up on. First thing, his persona. We learned from other people, they're saying, he was overweight, out of shape. Not really, a popular guy in high school, when he was a junior in high school and before. It sounds like he did have a friend group, but, he wasn't one of the cool kids or the popular kids. From what we understand, from what I understand, he was, bullied some. He wasn't the one that the girls were after. He wasn't their pick, and anybody knows, that's kind of, jarring to a guy's ego. And so then we learned, from his friends that he, I guess goes on summer break, comes back in 12th grade, and I'm going to quote what some of them are saying. He was thin as a rail. They also said that, that he also was a heavy heroin user. Again, this is alleged, don't know him, have no idea, but this has come from more than one individual that he had a heroin addiction at one time. Now, anyone who knows, people who have struggled with a heroin addiction knows that could definitely attribute to weight loss. That could definitely be the reason why. They also, then I was hearing people talk about too, that he was kind of like really fixated and obsessed with like fighting and kickboxing and boxing. And he obviously has had a hit or two to the nose here and there. And just, kind of exercise. And then also, changed, he had diet changes. He became a vegan. And so those things too, I thought, well, okay, let me put some things in perspective, because it does sound to me that he has an addictive personality, and we'll get more into that in a few minutes. But, 11th grade and before that, he's overweight, out of shape. So perhaps, he had an addiction to food. That happens a lot. Food issues are definitely a problem, in our culture. Then that would speak to perhaps, heroin. He picks up heroin. He loses the weight. Well, you might lose the weight, but then you have a heroin addiction that you're dealing with. And so that's a problem. So then perhaps his parents were like, hey, let's get you some help. Let's, see if we can't do something about this addiction. So perhaps he goes to rehab. Again, no idea. I'm just kind of like exploring a few things. So he goes to rehab. And then perhaps, he gets into some exercise. He starts realizing, perhaps that boxing and fighting is a good place for him to work out these issues. You get a lot of adrenaline from that. You get a lot, you can work a lot of things out through that. Just a lot of exertion. Just, I don't know what it is. Guys like to fight, things like that sometimes. When they're young, they'll just get into, some guys they get into that, and then you're like, why'd you do that? I don't know. But it sounds like that he was really kind of into just, to that scene, and people kind of sounded confused by why he just always wanted to fight. But perhaps it was a way that he was able to kind of release some things. Perhaps it was a release for him, odd as it may be. Perhaps it was. So then, that becomes his addiction, so to speak. But then I thought to myself too, well, there could be more to it than that too. I've known people who also kind of went into this path where they went from a drug use and started into like fighting and boxing and things like that, but they also picked up another issue, which was steroids. Again, don't know if that's the case. I'm just thinking back on people that I've known that was kind of their natural path that they went into, and that caused even more issues. But it definitely caused the anger issues within them. So I thought, well, that could be, but again, I don't know. So from there, I just wanted to kind of go from there into his physique. I've heard people say, he's scrawny, he's was frail. And I thought, perhaps when he had the heroin addiction, I have seen a picture where he did look very frail, did not look good. He looked gaunt, drawn. And I thought that could have been heroin days, definitely. But if you look at him today, I don't see a guy who, is scrawny and frail. I mean, he's not buff. Don't get me wrong. He's not muscular like someone you'd see that's really like a weightlifter. That has just muscles upon muscles. But I feel like he's pretty fit. He's lean, and he's probably got some strength to him, I would say. Now I say that to say this: the heinous crime committed against Zaina and Ethan and Maddie and Kaylee. That was not something that someone just showed up and just, they're just easily did in 5 minutes, in and out. That required as much physical concentration and preparation as it did mental and psychological preparation. I mean, all of it's sick in its own way. All of it's sick. But, I mean, it took focus, physical focus, as well as the mental and psychological focus. I mean, it requires a lot of effort, energy, and exertion to do what he did, especially when we hear that we know Xana fought back. I would not be shocked at all if the others fought back in some way also, or tried to. Because, I mean, I'm just going to put it this way, and this isn't the most respectful way I without triggering things into a really horrible space. I'll just tell you this. I personally have had, I've had C-sections when I've had children. And I remember, doctors talking about the many, many layers. And it's not just a simple thing to do as far as, getting through all of that. And so when you think that, and again, trigger warning, I'm just trying to just put myself in a place where I'm thinking, wow, this required so much of an individual to do this. This was not a thing where you just, I don't think this was random at all. I think that he knew what he wanted to do, and I think he studied it, and I think he really, drew up a plan, and I think he knew exactly what it was going to require. And I just think that required so much exertion. But still, even as prepared as he thought he might be, I still don't think he really knew what he was getting into until he got in there. Because let me tell you something. I believe that Xana, we know for a fact, and I believe they fought like hell in whatever capacity they could until they just could not anymore. I do. And I don't know that he was really expecting that or really thought about that. Because, unless you're in that situation, you don't know. You don't know how a person's going to react. You do not know. And so I really feel like that, as prepared as he may have been, I believe that he in some ways was taken aback too. And any kind of, physical effort, exertion to that point, to that extent, you're going to sweat, you're going to perspire. You might even get a little snotty. You are going to exert your own, just bodily liquids. You're going to do that. That's natural. And even I'm thinking too, a lot of people say, well, maybe he was covered head to toe. He had a hazmat suit. He had this. That's going to be hot too. Whenever you're working like that, you're going to sweat, okay? And he couldn't have, too much over his face. He had to see what he was doing. So even if he had something on his face, perhaps like, a pantyhose, it had to be something that was either a mesh or something. He had to be able to breathe. He had to be able to see what he was doing. There's some sweat going on. This is where I want to go with that. Because we keep talking about DNA, and I thought, this guy, he was a criminology major. So he knew a lot. I'm certain that he thought about and that there was a lot to do with DNA, things like that. And I think he did more than likely take some precautions to where he would, try not to leave anything behind. But I think that he, and even in those preparations, you couldn't be fully prepared. So like I said, I believe he was caught by surprise by some of just the fight back and what it required, exertion wise, because even if you prepare yourself, you really don't know. So I believe in all that. He's sweating and all, we know that it was a gruesome crime scene. We know the aftermath was horrendous. It was horrific. It was everywhere. We know this. We know this for a fact. We know that there was even, things being seen outside, coming through walls, things like that. So with that, just with that, that he had to be covered. And so I'm thinking, there was probably something there on his face, and he's sweating, and he, needs to see, and he goes to wipe, his face. And, as he's going down hallways and things, and he's trying to steady himself, and he's hurrying, there could be that bead of sweat mixed with blood or whatever else, or just whatever. It's slinging here, slinging there. You don't really control all that stuff, Perhaps at some point, I remember seeing people talk about, like, seeing maybe even blood or handprints higher up on cabinets and things, or door jams, and I'm thinking he could have steadied himself. There are so many components to that, and I really feel like, one of the things maybe he didn't think about was sweating. And that's going to happen no matter what he did. He's going to sweat just because of the amount of physical exertion it requires. And I believe that sweat helped with whatever DNA may have been left behind, especially if he's wiping and there's, it's mixed with some of their DNA and it's hitting walls here and there, Again, I don't know this for sure. I'm just thinking to myself, a person who's a criminology major that tries to outsmart everyone, you're going to miss a thing here or there, that you start thinking about hair, you think about, your skin, you think about, things like that. But, there's some things you can't control, and sweating's one of them, and you have to see. So with all of that, there is a portal there that could definitely leave, something behind. Again, just my thought. And then two, if he was injured, like perhaps, hey, if one of them bashed him in the nose and he had a bloody nose and he goes to wipe that, and that's mixed with other things and things sling. I mean, you don't know. He probably thought he was slick, but there's no way in the type of aftermath he left and the type of activity he engaged in such a heinous, horrific way that he did not leave some sort of calling card, even if I don't think he meant to, but he did. Okay, so this is my final thing I kind of want to hit on before I go for the day. This is a little bit longer than I wanted it to be, but there are just some things I've been thinking about. And that's the OCD thing. Now, he could be OCD. I don't know. Totally could be. Again, like I said, I believe he has an addictive personality. OCD would fall right into that. But let me tell you something. I believe he's sloppy too. Because people keep talking about, he didn't want his meat cooked on certain things. And I even saw somebody, forensic psychologist, talking about him being prone to cannibalism because of him being a vegan. And I thought, I listen again, just my opinion. But I'm like, I think that's a stretch, because I know vegan people that literally will not eat off of anything that meat has touched, not at all. They won't even go to restaurants that serve meat. I mean, like, even if there's vegan options, there's things in their life that they will not even do. If there's, anything that would cause them to turn their back on, whatever vegan decisions that they have decided that their life would go by. And I respect that, but I mean, I'm not going to say that they're prone to cannibalism. I think that's just a stretch. Especially when we've not even spoken to this young man. I mean, we don't know anything about him. Yeah, he's a monster, absolutely. But, I feel like some of this we're really stretching until we know more. Anyway, let me get to the OCD. Okay, so, I was like, okay, OCD, sure. I mean, it is a little weird that somebody with OCD could go in and do what he did, because, the aftermath was not something that you would expect from somebody with OCD. I mean, there's definitely some issues with that. So that, when I heard that he had the OCD, I said, okay, that's weird. And the vegan thing too. I mean, you can take the lives of people, but I don't know. So those things were kind of weird to me, but I'm like, okay. But let me tell you, one of the things that really, really brought it to me to where I'm really questioning now, I was watching the video where he and his dad were pulled over. I think they were pulled over twice, but this must have been the second one. And the patrolman goes to the car, and let me tell you, I saw their faces, but then I could not stop looking at the filthiness of that vehicle. I mean, filthy. And listen, I've lived in the north. I know that there's mud and there's salt and there's all that from snow. This car looked like it had not seen a sponge or a hose pretty much ever. It looked like it had been sitting under a tree for the last year and no one had ever done anything with it. I mean, it was filthy. And the handle where, the door handle where you would go open it, and I thought to myself, there's no way a person with OCD would ever touch that. They would be cleaning. There's no way. So that threw me off too. And I'm thinking, there's some things we do not know about this gentleman. And I use that term loosely. This monster. And I don't know. There's just things I'm noticing, things that I'm jotting down as I'm listening to other people and to all of you. I'd love to discuss more. I've been trying to jump into some of the chats and discussions as I can. Sometimes I don't get a chance to do them when they're live, so it's after the fact. But I'd like to hear what you all think. I mean, I'm sure everybody's got, opinions and thoughts, and, and people think differently, and the perceptions of what you all think. Your perception, may be totally different than mine. And maybe I missed something. Maybe there's something that I'm not thinking about. I want to know more. This case, we all want to see justice for the Idaho 4, and I know we call them that, and they have names, and, Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Zaina, and our hearts go out to their family, and we want to see justice for them. We want their families to be able to hold their memories as closely and dearly to their heart as they can, knowing that justice has been served on their behalf. And again, my heart breaks for them, and we want to see that occur. And along with you, I will be on pins and needles, watching, listening, praying, and yeah, that's probably all that I have for tonight. And so I'm going to sign off here. And until I talk to you next time, thanks for being an advocate with me. Good night.